Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor. Welcome back to part 2
Woo-hoo!
with the Monique McMurray. All right, we're just going to jump in right where we left off last week. We're not going to, well, let's recap. Weddings are stressful. You can learn how to manage it by listening to this podcast. So, Monique, tell us about the most peaceful wedding that you were ever a part of. What was like the most low-key, no-stress, peaceful wedding?
I would have to say the absolutely most peaceful wedding I've ever been in is Karina Hendricks.
That tracks.
It checks out.
Yeah.
She is so chill. She is very, just her natural demeanor is she's a very considerate person. She does not like conflict. When we were younger, I used to tell her, girl, no, you got to get in people's face. And she's like, that's just not who I am. And you know what? It's worked for her to not do that. It's worked better for her than getting in people's face worked for me. So there's that. I think what made her wedding so amazing was her older sister, Carissa King, dear young married, shout out. Dear young married couple.
Yes, because that's what they need is a shout out on this podcast.
She was married by that time, and so she knew everything to do. So it was very organized. Everything was very fun. And Karina, her expectations were very doable. Everything. There were definitely situations that were stressful, our outfits were not done the night before the wedding, and we were staying in a hotel.
Wow.
And so her grandma had come up and her aunt had come up to help get our outfits completed because they were not. And so that was stress. As a bridesmaid, mind you, I am not the bride.
Right.
As a bridesmaid, I was stressed and pressed because my measurements had gotten confused or, whatever the case was. I can't quite remember, but I put on the skirt and it fell straight off. Okay. And this is night, it's night, we're going to go to bed. They finally get there. And so everybody's got to try everything off because she's getting married in the middle of the day. It was not a nighttime wedding.
So you didn't have all day to keep prepping.
It looked big, but our Aunt Janet said, just, pull it up and see. I put it on. There was no pulling it up. I just put it on and let go, and it dropped flat. And so that meant that the entire skirt, and I was not the only one. Some people, they couldn't pull their skirts up. Others had the same situation. So it was most of her bridal party, their outfits had to be redone the night before. Thank God Aunt Janet is a seamstress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think just measurements, or I'm not sure what had happened, what went wrong. But even then, Karina was because she was so chill, everyone else.
She's like,
I
don't
was
care if
panicky
you guys
inside,
wear tracksuits. I'm getting married tomorrow.
She said, I don't care. Show up if you want, but I'm changing my last name at noon. So.
We're talking about the person who right now is back at school teaching after having surgery 1 week ago when they told her she needed to recover for 4 weeks.
You are kidding.
Yes.
She's back at it already.
She's back. She was
She was back at Target. Look, we're telling all. This is a Karina tell-all.
She is probably going to be at Rock Region too.
Yeah, it's just
100%, and her team will still win.
No, they will not. My team will win.
Oh, okay, never mind.
They don't let us, and by they, I mean she won't let us play together. She says it's unfair to everybody else.
See but that's
Isn't
who
that rude?
she is. It's in her pores. Fairness and goodness just seeps out of her. But less
Fairness
about
and
her
goodness.
her fruits of the spirit.
Fruits of the spirit.
And more about the wedding. Yeah, but she was a very, very chill bride. I don't have any even stressful memories. I'm sure things happened and whatever. But she was so chill and just happy to be getting married. It was very nice. And again, if somebody else has high stress, I tend to be a high stress person. I get it. I understand.
Your team picks up on that. In any leadership role, obviously being a leader and a bridesmaid, like as a bride, is not your typical understanding of leadership. But anytime you have a leader who's exhibiting stress, your team is going to pick up on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's nice to have a peaceful experience.
Her bridesmaids, they all got along. And I like that. And it may not have been that they all see eye to eye in everyday life. Like, there are some of them that were some of my best friends when she got married that I haven't spoken to in years. We didn't have a falling out or anything. We just grew apart.
Yeah.
And, but even then, at that point, we were kind of growing apart. And even then, everybody was able to come together and to keep the main thing, which I wish could be, in a part of every wedding.
Yeah.
But it was able to be in Karina's wedding. It was very, very nice, very chill. It was cool. So awesome. It was fun. And we were made aware before time too, like, hey, we're all going to stay. We're all going to help. We're all going to clean up. And that was nice because we knew. So we planned for that. So I brought shoes. I brought flats because I had worn like a cowgirl boot thing with a heel and they were a bit uncomfortable. And I think I brought a change of clothes, if I remember correctly. So I was prepared to do that. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in a bunch, some big old hills. My feet were on fire and everything was in my car from cleanup. Like, everything was there. We were ready to go. It was easy. There was a plan. So it was really nice. And she did have a team. We were just there helping to aid.
Yeah.
And it went very quickly and seamlessly. Like, I have no crazy thoughts or memories about that wedding. It was very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my growing up years were spent in the Midwest, and it's not terribly different wedding to wedding. And I think that it might not be like Midwest versus Western culture. It was just like maybe the size of the church or something like that. But one of my first like teenager, like growing up adult recognized, I mean, I was like 13, so I wasn't an adult, but where I went to a wedding and I observed what was happening, their cleanup was just the church pitching in at the end because it was one of those services.
That's actually
It's cool. One of those churches where everyone's invited to the wedding. They put maybe the RSVP list up on the bulletin board and you say if you're coming, right? And at the end, the bride and groom left. They kicked on the lights. People were wiping down tables, putting them away. That. Because you're not in a massive building, for one thing. And everyone knows, hey, church is tomorrow, so let's get these tables rolled up. It's not overly stressful with silverware or anything like that. I mean, you can still have a nice wedding and not have super nice, not like glassware or whatever. But it was just like, yep. And then you know what? 150 people cleaned up and it was done in about 15 minutes.
And that's amazing. And that works. Now, to touch on from the first podcast we had done, where I said, the bride, it would be amazing if the bridesmaids were able to leave after. Uh-huh. If there is not somebody there, of course you say and you help. If there's absolutely no one and there's nothing in place, nothing was communicated to you as a bridesmaid. I had not gone to a particular wedding. I wasn't invited or anything like that, but I had been in town and we had stopped. I was with a friend. We had stopped by the church. The bride and the groom, it was like the middle of the night. I lied to you not. It was probably like midnight. The bride and the groom were there.
Stop.
Cleaning up.
Stop it.
From the wedding because the next day was church. There's no way. Like, that is unacceptable. So even if I'm exhausted and I just have to, I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, so I would hate to just like walk on the ground with no socks or slippers. But
people be doing that.
They do. I would do it if it meant that they got to leave. They are way more important, the bride and the groom, in that time frame than me going home and resting. So if there is no one else, like, obviously I would prefer, but maybe she had not thought ahead and all of her party had left because she had not communicated to them. And so her and her brand new groom, they were not on their honeymoon. They were at the church all hours of the night, tearing down their wedding by themselves. They were not upset. They are godly, great, wonderful people. They were not a bit offended. They were happy. They were giddy in love. But I was like, y'all just got married tonight, right? She said, yes. I said, it is the middle of the night. She said, I know, we just want to make sure the church is prepared.
That is
Very
hashtag
sweet.
holiness.
She is 100% going to heaven. But I was like, baby girl, if you do not put out an SOS, even if it's on Instagram Live, like, you need to be, as I said, in episode 1 at the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Yeah.
You are not, okay, we're not here at 2 and 3 in the morning.
By yourself trying to...
Just you and your brand new man's like, baby girl.
She was probably sad because it was the first time they got to be alone together. She's like, I don't care if we're bussing tables. We are alone.
Okay, because she said, for better or for worse, it's me and you. And that's fine. But for me, I'd be like, boo-boo. No, this marriage just started.
Yeah. They're starting from a place of servitude.
Yes. And by we out, I'm like, you're going to be exhausted. Like, I need naps in the middle of the day right now. Like, with no huge days, okay? Like, then I'm going to be exhausted. I will. If I get married to my church and nobody cleans it up, 100% I'm going to stay. I'm not going to be like, well, Pastor, my God, you just got to preach with these flowers and these candles everywhere, you know? But I thought that made me feel bad for her. I'm like, oh, well, if I knew you a little bit better, I may stay and help you. But baby girl, I don't know you. I'm not in my city. I got to go.
And I wasn't invited either.
Yeah, and I was not at your wedding.
So it sounds like the common denominator between stressful versus peaceful weddings, and we're going to get into talking about your most stressful wedding as well. If it's not something that you can go super deep into, maybe just talk about the highlights.
Surface.
Or the lowlights, if you will. But it sounds like the common denominator is the amount of planning that has gone forth. If it was well planned out, it's going to be peaceful.
Yeah, communication.
If it was janky, not planned out, then everyone's going to be stressful and everyone's going to hate everything.
Yeah.
All right, most stressful wedding. This is what was worth coming to part 2 for right here. And even if you can't, like I said, you can't, we understand.
No, we'll gloss.
Or pick out the worst part of a lot of weddings and talk about it.
Okay, you know what? I think I'll just pick out the worst part of a lot of weddings.
Pour the tea.
Sis, look. The kettle was on the stove. The kettle is now singing. I'm pulling it off the stove. I put your tea bags in the teacups. And it's time to let the tea steep.
Let's do it.
Okay, so just overall, and plenty and many of weddings, I think the most nightmarish thing, and I know we touched on this before, is when you bring drama to the bride's door. If you do, I feel like you immediately get an F in bridesmaid duties. Okay, so what I mean by that...
Who needs an MRS degree when you could get a bridesmaid degree?
And listen, I will be the teacher, and I will be handing out those Fs left and right. Like,
Dr. Monique McMurray, bridesmaidologist.
Who? Because we are not doing this to the brides in 2025.
We ain't doing it.
Okay, absolutely not. It's not giving cutesy.
It's not.
It's not giving demure.
It's not.
It's absolutely not.
It's giving trash.
Yes, it's giving, like, yeah. I'm not even going to say, I was going to say it's giving ghetto, but is that appropriate? Yeah, 100%. We're not doing, brides of 2025 onward, y'all are getting princess treatment because you deserve it.
That tea is steeping.
Okay, it's steeping. I'm there. I'm ready. Take your first sip.
Give me an example of bringing drama to a bride.
A perfect example would be if you, let's say you don't like something another bridesmaid is doing. This is what I don't recommend you do. I think that you should not go, unless it's like a big deal, like the bridesmaid's trying to get the groom or something crazy. I mean, at that point,
you can bring that to the police and you'll pass it.
Okay, don't walk, run, yay, fly. But if the bride is just, if a bridesmaid, okay, perfect example. Let's say, so I'm not calling anyone out. Let's say I'm a bridesmaid and you, Danielle, are a bridesmaid and we are in Kayla's wedding.
Okay.
And I want you to bake cookies by the 3rd at 3 p.m. Okay? For the bridal party.
So I have a deadline of my task.
And I have set this for you. The bride knows nothing. The bride is over here living brideful bliss and stress.
Sure.
So I tell you that. And it gets to that day at 3 and I check in and you're like, girl, I am so sorry. The cookies are not baked yet. I'm at the store buying the ingredients. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to discipline her. Okay, that is strike 1. Because Antonio's got to watch, but I do not got the time for that. Okay, because you're not my mama. and you're not my daddy, and you're not my bald-headed granny. Okay, listen. So then you're like, okay, whatever you think that it should be, whether you're going to go tat-a-tell to the bride, whether you're going to threaten for that bridesmaid to not be in the wedding anymore, and then, be like,
you
to the
as
bride,
another bridesmaid?
hey, bride, kick her out the wedding. Inappropriate. We're not doing that in 2025.
No.
Because then the bride is like, okay, why does she need to be kicked out the wedding? Or, what's going on? I'm so stressed out. She is stressed to the max. And then, she's going and confronting this other bridesmaid. Well, then the bridesmaid's feelings are now hurt. So then the bridesmaid's not only hurt at the bride, she's also hurt at the other bridesmaids. And then that bridesmaid that, maybe talked to the bride then goes tells another friend. And then the bridesmaid that got talked to by the bride maybe goes tells another friend. They're all in the wedding.
And all this, everything is changing slightly at each retelling.
And then everybody's a little bit upset, maybe at the bride at that point. And the bride is in tears. Like, I am so stressed. I'm under an immense amount of pressure. I just am trying to get everything worked out for this day. And now you guys are all fighting. I'm trying to make everyone happy. She's having individual meetings. I'm just saying overall, this happens in many, many, many weddings.
Okay.
It is very inappropriate to do. And I want to, sometimes tell these bridesmaids, you would never have that in your wedding. If you were the bride, you would never want that to be done. No. Why are you doing it? If anything, most of the stuff is petty. It never needs to reach the bride. Yeah. Figure it out. If you can't figure it out, make an excuse to not be in the wedding. Mm-hmm. Like, I would rather someone just step down, like, from bridesmaid duties, even though as a bridesmaid you need other bridesmaids. I would rather someone step down than constantly go and tat-a-tell to the bride, and she's stressing out, and then she's flipping out on everyone, which I've not been really in a situation like that where the bride flips out on everyone over something that was told to them. But I have been in a situation where there was a particular bride and she's very soft-spoken, and so she kept trying to go for whatever reason. I don't know where it started. I don't know why it started. I don't know who's at fault, but all the bridesmaids had drama with each other. For one reason or another, I can't even pinpoint. I tried to figure it out. I had no idea where to start. And the bride, instead of focusing on what she needed to do about even getting pampered, packing her stuff, stopped everything, is meeting with each bridesmaid individually, is trying to comfort them, trying to understand hours upon hours per bridesmaid.
That she should be spending on
the wedding. That she should be spending with her family.
She's parenting.
Yes, and trying to make sure they're all... I'm like, absolutely not. Inappropriate. She does not need to be worrying about that. Like, this is not a big enough of a deal that the bride needs to step in. And then people are offended. They don't want to be in the wedding. Other people are offended. Things are misconstrued. It may be that someone said a bridesmaid did this. The bridesmaid did not do what they were accused of. And then they look bad. The bride thinks the bridesmaid did it, but the bridesmaid really did. And it just gets... the pettiest things, and then it blows into this massive thing where there are really honest hurt feelings,
which can bleed over into if it's a church setting, into your
daily life with that person
within the body
outside of the wedding. And in a particular situation I was in like that, I have noticed, that it did kind of change relationships. Like, there are certain people, it's just like you could feel that awkwardness when you're like, hey, how's it going? You can kind of feel it. And I'm like, listen, that was a wedding. It's over. Weddings do have stress. I just think as bridesmaids, we've got to do better.
You got to be better.
You have to. Like, no tattling to the bride. No trying to get people fired. No, just... And I think if you're going to step down, it needs to be at the beginning for a genuine reason.
Yeah.
Like, if the fighting's so bad that you're getting ready to have a massive anxiety attack, or, of course, or if your mental health is all out of whack, or the drama just won't stop, I understand that. But, if you've already agreed to be in the wedding, stick it out and just try to come together. Even if you don't agree, like, it comes back to, it's not about you. You were asked for a specific reason to help, to aid.
So I have a question for you then. So going back to that hypothetical, it's Kayla's wedding, you're a bridesmaid, I'm a bridesmaid. Say you're the maid of honor. Going back to the deadline, what would you do if I had missed that deadline? If I said I could do something, and whether it's a real excuse or a lame excuse, what do? You just not have that thing? Or, because...
You improvise.
There's only so much you can do. I know you were joking by saying discipline or whatever, but there's there's no like, okay, well then you're out, you know.
Right.
There's nothing you can hold over them. They have to want to be a part, and they have to want to contribute. So what do?
Honestly, you improvise. And I know it gets down to, well, I have my duties and they have their duties. Somewhere, someone is not going to do something that they're supposed to do. We all cannot stop and beat them over the head. That is what causes drama. That is what causes tension. If they fell through the cracks, someone does have to reach out and communicate, hey, you said that you would have the cupcakes here, but they would be cooked or baked, ready to go here at the house. They're not here. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to do them. Okay, that is now done. So me telling them off, I can ask, okay, well, what happened? You know, I wish you would have communicated. I could have put something else in place. At the end of the day, if they did not communicate, you going off on them and beating them over the head at that moment is not going to make anything better. You're in a high stress situation now.
Yeah.
So all you can do is improvise. Okay, we don't have the cupcakes that were supposed to be baked. That is very frustrating. The next best thing I can do is run to Costco, scrape the frosting off, whip up some buttermilk frosting. I don't know. I'm not a baker. Buttercream. There you go. I'm also not a cook, so there's that. Buttercream, and make the best of a situation that I would have preferred to not go this way.
Yeah.
Again, I am someone, I do tend to stress quite a bit, but I've had to learn because I go to a church that puts on quite a few events. We all go to the same church.
Yeah.
It is a fairly large church. Things fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
If you just scream and throw a fit, not only did that thing fall through the cracks, you've now wasted time. Other people are frustrated. They feel uncomfortable by your reaction to what happened. You literally, someone has to stand up, be the leader, pick up and figure something out.
Yeah.
And by figure something out, unless it's the groom not showing up and no one can find him, if it's cupcakes, do not go tell the bride.
Have you seen that happen?
No, thank God.
Oh, it's only a matter of time, Monique.
Thank God. Oh, no. It better not be my man's, because I will chase him. I'm like, if he's not here, I'm not here, okay? I will go be a mail order bride and rush up before I show up without my man to my own wedding. I said what I said. And I meant every single word. But you improvise, and the bride, you can tell her after, but she does not have to know. All it does is stress her out. It makes her feel like her team is not being supportive of her needs. It makes her not even want to express if she has any further needs, because it's like, oh, they're stressed out. Yeah. They're not going to be able to help.
Yeah.
You improvise on things. She may have wanted Krispy Kreme donuts. Okay, well, Krispy Kreme donuts was closed Saturday at 8 a.m. You don't not bring donuts for the little donut board that everybody does now. You go to Safeway, buy donuts. If she notices that they weren't Krispy Kreme, you can let her know after the party. Yeah, I know you want a Krispy Kreme. That's your favorite. We tried to stop by and get them. It was closed, but we got the next best thing.
Yeah.
Most times they're not freaking out. They really are in the moment and enjoying themselves. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
so.
Yeah. Like you said, they're not freaking out. They may not even notice.
Exactly.
I wanted live fish, like little goldfish, at my reception in little bowls at each cocktail table. So like there were like 20 goldfish total. My husband's best man went and got them the morning of, and they died by the time the ceremony happened. All the fish died. Okay, guys.
Every single one of them died.
By the time I got to my reception,
that's suspicious. I would have returned them.
By the time I got to my reception, I forgot about the fish. I wasn't like looking at the cocktail tables thinking, where's the fish? I forgot about them.
You're in the moment. You're loving life. You're feeling like a princess.
I had no idea. Nobody told me, and I had no idea. My sister, we were texting during my honeymoon, like just days after the wedding, we were texting, and she was like, sorry about the fish. I was like, oh my word, the fish. Yeah, where were they? And she's like, they died. Yeah, I didn't even notice.
But you would have been totally stressed if when you walked in, somebody grabbed you and was like, hey, heads up, all the fish died. So we had to pull them off the table. We're so sorry. You'd be like, oh no, well, now the table looks bare right there. Oh,
and then you would have been thinking about that instead of celebrating. And
like there's some things that they don't need. You do the best that you absolutely can. And if the goldfish die, you don't run up to the bride and say, hey, goldfish dead. Like, you plow through. Yeah. I know for one of my friend's weddings, last minute detail was, and it was a very nice, well, it's fine. She won't mind if I tell. It was for my friend London's wedding. She, I don't know what had happened. Everybody, we're ripping and running. It's right before the ceremony. And we realize that there was not anything for the guest book attendants to have the guests sign. So guests were like lining up, and there was not anything there for them to sign. Well, it was planned, but I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Okay.
We were taking pictures and this, that, and the other. So I'm not quite sure what happened. But, you know, for London, it ended up being very nice because, again, that's not something that you just, like, that is something the bride will want to freak out about, right? Because it's like, oh, my word, my guests are lined up. Nobody has anything for them to sign. Somebody ran to, I don't know, an arts and crafts store, Target. I'm not 100% sure. It's been a couple of years. But they got, like, the easel, or what would they be? The little...
Like canvas?
Canvas. Yeah. They got a canvas. They got a couple of those, and people signed that. And her wedding was so breathtaking and so beautiful that whatever it was that was originally planned, again, totally slips my mind. It's been too long.
It probably slips her mind, too.
Yeah, and you know what? No one in the world, not one of her guests thought, like, oh, she had something else and then had to use this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big deal unless you make it a big deal. So if I went to London and I'm crying and I'm falling all over her beautiful dress and I'm like, oh, just a heads up, your guests are lining up, you know. Well, yeah, as the bride, just so you know, like, your guests, who knows, they're probably all just going to miss the wedding because they just want to sign something so bad and there's nothing there. You know, if you're saying stuff like that, well, of course, as the bride, she's going to be like, oh, my word.
Yeah, and then her attention is immediately divided.
Yes. It's not on, you know, feeling beautiful, letting people help take care of her. She's getting ready in the moment. She's going to be completely and totally stressed. It was able to be taken care of. Someone saved the day somewhere. The little canvas things are great. They're memories. I'm sure she has them somewhere. And it worked out just fine. But that's an example of, you know, somewhere something may fall through the cracks, and it's not on purpose. Everybody's working together to get the day. Yes, it was something that was planned. Obviously, most weddings we go to have a guest book. So it wasn't that somewhere something had happened, and instead of freaking her out, you improvise and you move along and you figure it out and let her still have her day.
I would say too, and this is just as an observation, not as a personal experience, but when those stressors, like the high stressors, like the arguments between the bridesmaids, whatever, those are typically near the finish line. And so if you are in a fight with one of your fellow bridesmaids, I would say be the bigger person and let it go.
Yes.
I mean, unless it's going to cost you $1,000 or something like that. But the little petty nonsense, nothing.
Agreed.
The finish line is in sight. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't ever have to speak to this person ever again in 1 month. Or
and the only thing you
whatever.
can even have in common, like I've been at weddings with people where I have absolutely nothing in common with some of the bridesmaids, except for one thing: we're both there to serve the bride.
The bride, yeah.
So you know it works when you don't. If you keep that in mind, if you don't have something in common. Thankfully, I've been blessed to be in weddings. Like again, bringing up my friend London, I was in her wedding. Everybody in her wedding was my friend. Like, we're all really good friends.
Yeah.
And so that was also another very easy wedding. Yes, it was beautiful and, you know, top notch. But it was also still very nice because everybody in the wedding enjoys already being with one another. So that was an easy one. Yeah. That was made easy, but it's not always that ideal, easy. Yes.
But it's
not always going to be that, right? It just so happened that everyone in the wedding, for the most part, as far as I know, we all really liked each other. So we were all able to get along and, you know, help out when we would have the nights where we're all working on stuff for the weddings, or for the wedding. My memories are, you know, we were having fun, we're laughing, we're eating, and it was a lot of fun because we all enjoy each other's company. It's not always going to be that. But even still, you can make it enjoyable for the bride. Like, you may not be able to really stand someone there, but you don't have to let everybody else know that you don't like them.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Even if you're not enjoying yourself, make it enjoyable for the bride.
Yeah.
Yes.
She chose all those people because she loves all those people, not because they love each other.
Yeah. And if you play your cards right, she probably won't even notice that you're not enjoying each other.
And don't put pressure. I've been in, you know, probably 3 or 4 weddings where there would be bridesmaids that put pressure on the bride about something, whether it was the groom, like you were saying, one of your friends, something with the groom, or it was another bridesmaid, or it was like a friend coming to the wedding. That is inappropriate. Just because you don't care for someone does not mean that the bride has to have the same feelings as you.
That's what I believe that situation was about the person who was throwing the fit about the dress, except for in reverse. They were trying to pit everyone against the bride.
That's ridiculous.
Nonsense. You do not belong in this wedding.
Yeah.
That is absolute nonsense. Even if you have 0 sense, have enough sense to say, I shouldn't be here. What am I doing?
And if it's something where you just you cannot stand it. And I'm not saying, like, as a bridesmaid, you may discuss things. I've been in weddings where, you know, the dresses didn't quite match the body type, as in, like, they just, even, you know, the biggest size could not fit. There was one dress I'd gotten a size, like, apparently like a size like 16 or something. We'd ordered them from China, and I could not fit into this dress to save my life. I could not fit in it. Janet had to come in and, you know, make, you know, altercations, and it still ended up, you know, it was very snug and whatnot. But if there's a situation where you're like, hey, I ordered the biggest size that they had, you obviously something like that, you communicate that to the bride, because if that's a dress she really wants and she cannot see herself not having that dress, that may be something. If I can't get the zipper up and there's not enough extra material, and I can't find that material, and I'm putting in the work to find it, you know, that may be an instance where she's like, I have to have that dress. Well, if she has to have it and I can't zip it, I may need to step down so her day can continue without
But
makeup.
if you're a bride listening to this, I need you to not be like that. I need you to be considerate, because there's a reason you asked that person to be in your wedding, and you should care enough about them to be considerate of.
I do agree with that. Now, but I also agree with, if she just seen it and that has got to be her dress, then I need to take a step back.
Would a bride have to be like, oh yeah, it's got to be that one?
It would blow your mind.
That's why you're here. Blow my mind.
It would blow your mind, but it happens.
But I actually had.
I have worn things that I did not fit, and they were taken out to the last degree. I mean, it was hanging out by a shred. If I even moved my shoulders one wedding, I was told, be very mindful of hugging people because you will bust through the back. They had used as much material. Because the thing is they're like, okay, we want to be cost effective. This one was not cost effective. My dress was like $260. And it got there. The bottom, I was trying to shimmy in. Me and Janet are grabbing the material and trying to shove it over my thighs. Like, come on, get up. Ordered the biggest size that I could find on this site. Mind you, it's across the world. It took like 3 months to get to me. It gets to me the week of the wedding. And so the day of the wedding, I'm like, Janet, listen, you know, because there were just no other options. And she really wanted this dress. And I really want to respect that. She was very sensitive about, you know, you saying anything about the dress, if it was like, you know, so this dress was not fitting me. But the top was so large. The sleeves were hanging completely off my hands. But we could not get it over my thighs, okay? And it's not my usual size. It was, we had like really gone up in size in it. And Janet was like, what in the world? You know, this is really crazy. And I mean, and her and I are working to get it on. So she takes the whole entire dress apart. The whole thing. And I'm talking like I'm missing pictures almost at this point. Because we are trying to get this to fit around my thighs. To get enough material to fit. And I'm like, I'm going to make this work. Because this is my homegirl. And there had already been a dress that I was like, it just did not fit. Because I wish I was like long and willowy. That's just not Auntie Mo. So the first one didn't fit, and this one I was like, no, this one's got to fit. It had just arrived, so I assumed, like, if anything, we're gonna have to take it in. Maybe. I was like, okay. So I could not really move at all, anything, because we had to end up taking the extra up top and putting it down bottom. And so I came in just looking like the Rock.
Dress upside down.
Yes, and I like everyone. I'm like, I was so tight I could barely breathe. I was like, you could completely just. You know, see that I could not breathe because we took as much as we could off that top to put on the bottom. And it was still not enough. And I was like, this can't be the biggest size. Thankfully, Janet, I love you, Janet. She got on there and she wrote a scathing review. She was like, this is not the right measurement. There's no way this is right. Yeah, she totally told the lady off, which
they're all like,
Janet.
Would the bridal party gather around to pray? Except for you, Monique. Do not lift your hands.
I'm not joking. Here's my bouquet. I held it right here, and I could not move it. I held it right under my chin. To her chin. I couldn't breathe because I had to take very shallow breaths because, again, I was getting ready to read my mouth.
No breathing exercises for you.
Okay, the Hulk. That's what I was getting ready to be.
That is wild. Okay, I just had an idea, and if you're down for it,
I'm here.
Since the tea is being poured, how about we rapid fire pick like as many just, if not bad, interesting things, and be like, one time this happened, and then one time, and see how many we can get before you run out.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Okay, good or bad?
I don't have a lot of experience.
Good or bad?
Well, mostly bad. But if you have we got the teapot. It's like,
okay.
So there's a beep. It like steams.
Okay. One time, the bride really needed to use the restroom, so obviously all of her bridesmaids helped her use the potty because she had her dress on. But
love that.
Then somebody took a picture of us.
No.
Yes, and you couldn't see anything. You couldn't not really see she was on the potty, but then it got posted.
No.
We're all around her holding her dress. Again, you cannot see anything.
This is what I'm here for.
Okay. So that's one thing. Ooh, I've got to be so careful. I've got to be very mindful and demure because rapid fire is going to get me in rapid fire.
Okay, while you're thinking, I'll do one.
Okay.
One time, I was in the restroom after a wedding. It was several months after this bride's wedding. And after her maid of honor had done, like, moved heaven and earth for her, she told me that, in all seriousness, her maid of honor really dropped the ball.
And that took my breath.
She told me that.
One time, I was a part of a bridal party where someone in the bridal party went to a rental place and asked if we could have the decor for free to use for the day.
Stop.
If I lie, hi fry.
Yes, it's worth the try.
Oh my goodness. One time, this is several years ago, I feel like I have to say that so people are not like, ooh, but I was not a part of the wedding, but I was at the bridal shower, and they're having the bridal party at a friend's house, like a friend of the family, not like a friend of the bride, and the bridal party did not actually plan for all the catering stuff, like they did not catering, but like the food prep, and didn't have the utensils, and so the mother of the bride was in the kitchen, trying to help them instead of supporting her daughter in her time of celebration. And the bridal party wanted to ask the host if they could use her personal kitchen stuff for their food because they did not plan, and the mother of the bride had to tell them that they could not do that.
Honestly, I don't know if I feel like that's bad.
Oh, I didn't say they begged and begged and begged to use this facility.
Oh,
this was not oh sure, we're old friends. It was like a put you on the spot, make you feel bad kind of thing.
Okay, that could be a lot.
The biggest thing to me in that story, I can't give a lot of context here, but is the mother of the bride. To me, the mother of the bride was not by her daughter's side celebrating. She was in there trying to manage, not like over manage, but just to get the bridal party to not be idiots.
Oh,
the bridesmaids were sniping at each other. It was everyone else's fault, and they wanted to just go and like, they hadn't planned like anything. It was a nightmare.
Oh no.
Anyways, this is supposed to be rapid fire,
really
and I have
sad.
Yeah.
That hurts my heart for the bride. And again, things happen, but the bridal party, that is part of our duty, is for the bride to not even realize there's a hiccup. Like, you just pick up and you move and you go.
Also, probably for the mother of the bride, too. Like,
yes,
she doesn't deserve that.
On that
she
day.
doesn't deserve that. Like, she's not the main person, but she's there to celebrate that.
Yes, and you do honor the mother on the day of as well. I think that's important. Yeah. Like, you set her by her daughter, you make her feel special as well.
I feel like I added too many details for this rapid fire, but...
Oh man, and there are so many lessons to be learned from this, but one time I heard of a bridesmaid who showed up late to the photo session because her personal mani-pedi went too long.
Stop.
Not like the whole bridesmaid thing that you do before the wedding, like the traditional thing. It was her personal mani-pedi.
Don't be that person. This is not your day. Oh my goodness.
There's so many. So many. I don't have one that crazy, unfortunately.
They don't have to be crazy. Okay, here's one that is kind of crazy. One time a bridesmaid showed up in a dress that she had bought that morning that was not the assigned dress for the wedding, and she wanted to change it up the day of...
So it looked totally different? It looked nothing like the rest of the bridesmaids' dresses?
She bought it that morning. That morning.
That's wild.
Again, don't be this person. First of all, if you're a bride and you're listening to these and thinking, that's insane, be grateful that this is not happening at your bridal party. It could be worse. But if you're a bridesmaid, don't do these kind of things because the day is not about you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think the more you are a bridesmaid, you do see crazy stuff. And it's not to pinpoint or like bash anyone individually. It's just these are things that are so bizarre when you think about it, because
Bizarre
I've been in
word,
weddings, where it goes smoothly and it's about the bride and she feels the love and she feels good and she loves her bridal party that she chose. You want the bride to have good memories of that. I don't want to be talking to the bride after her wedding and being like, oh my word, Mo, that was so horrible. Like, I just cannot believe that happened. I'm so hurt.
This is your one day.
Yes. One day.
Yes.
One day.
Like your fairy tale day. Like, if you cannot be a good bridesmaid, just don't be one. It's not about, you cannot be bratty. I don't care if you've never been one before. If you've never been a bridesmaid before and you want to know what to do, you can literally start. If you have no idea what to do, you need to start by having a conversation. That way you're aware of the expenses. You're aware of what needs to be done, what is expected of you, the expectations that the bride has of you. The bride may not even know. So you sit down with the bride. I have been in weddings where the bride had no idea what she was doing. So I bought her a planner. We sat down and we began to plan.
Oh, that's so
I
nice.
figured out what her expectations were. Okay, so you want this.
Because sometimes she doesn't even know what her expectations are.
Or she'll, may have
like
something and it's not in the budget, so you don't. Realistically, you can start looking at things. Okay, so this is the sort of venue that you want. This is what I've seen. Oh, it's booked 2 years out. You want to be married in 6 months. Well, realistically, she may not know that there are some venues that are booked years out.
Yeah.
Someone may need to sit down. That's not something that knowledge that everyone has if they've never been in weddings and they've not been around that. And so you sit down, and it took a couple of times. Another bridesmaid or another bride, dear friend of mine. Again, she had not really been around that, so I went with her and got things for the bridal party. We got things together. Yes, I was in the bridal party, but it wasn't about me. It was the other ones, and got cards so she can write and ask them to be her bridesmaids. So it starts there, and, you kind of help her along the way if you know things. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I'd been in enough weddings where there's,
you have that knowledge, that depth of knowledge that not everyone has. But, if they don't have a mom, or if their mom is not knowledgeable, that kind of stuff, I'm sure that would be a great asset to have.
Yeah. And of course, I'm not a bride again. I know I've said that a couple of times. But I do think even there, though, like my brother, he is a musician. He is an amazing pianist. And so many times people had asked him over the years to play for their weddings. And I think a rule of thumb, and I know we're not getting into what a bride should do, but just things, obviously, that bridesmaids or in weddings in general. Like, if someone plays in your wedding, even if you don't, sometimes people do it out of the kindness of their heart if they're a dear friend. Even if you don't have money, a thank you card will go a long way. And that's something that a bridesmaid can actually help with. So I've done that in weddings where I'm like, okay, I made a list. So we need to go ahead and make, a thank you card for Brother Wilson, a thank you card for Brother Young. And again, not everybody knows that, but as a bridesmaid, if you know, these are little things that you can do to help, where you're not terrible if you don't do it. So if you didn't do that, you're not a horrible bride. But it's nice also, to do. Yeah. And if you as a bridesmaid, little things from being in other weddings, you can always aid and help in that way. Yeah. And you don't have to be bossy. If the bride doesn't want to do that, she doesn't have to do that, of course. But there's certain ways that you can help and not just be a mess and causing her extra stress. If you have extra time, you can think of things like that. Like, okay, do we have someone to help with the bouquets? Let's get that in order. I know that these need to be done, if not the day of, at least the night before. Do we have someone on boutonnieres? These may be things that the bride has never had to consider. Okay, do we have snacks for the groom and the groomsmen? Do we have snacks? Do we have hairspray? Do we, these are things they may not know that make a really big difference for the bride. So you don't even, things like that I do run past just in case she does know and her family is taking care of it, so I'm not overstepping. But those are things you can discuss, and, if she needs help there, you can help there if you have extra time. Do anything other than stir the pot and cause trouble with other bridesmaids.
Speaking of stirring the pot, these people are like my parents' age, so they got married a long time ago, but the best man opened up all their cards, stole all of their money.
So don't horrible.
Like stole.
Not like, which I don't like when people open up I wouldn't want people to open up my cards anyways, even if they're being like nice and like, here's some money for later. No, this man took all of their cards and stole everything.
Did they confront him?
And he fell off the face of the earth. He was like they were out of church. So it wasn't, they're in church now, but...
He was a con man 101.
He was basically a con man. And
con man for dummies, because he said, I'm taking the cards and dipping. That's crazy.
I think, if I remember, this is the same wedding where the mother-in-law opened up all their gifts for them, too. She said, I was just curious, and you guys were gone for a long time, so I opened up all your gifts.
Absolutely not.
I'm telling you, it would have been better on the dance floor.
100%. I do not have a television, but you would hear me on Judge Judy, because I'm taking everybody to court. Ain't no way on God's green earth that you are taking my cards, you're opening my gifts. No. Yeah. We're going to small claims.
Yeah. And if it doesn't pass there, I'm going to big claims. I don't even know if there is a big claims court, but you can catch me there.
Outside. How about that?
How about that? Once again, we want to thank Monique McMurray so much for not only being on the podcast, but being our first repeat guest.
Stop it. What?
Yes, you are our first repeat guest. And
3
so
episodes
we are...
now.
Yes, 3 episodes.
Okay. Third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm. But before we close out, I wanted to ask, is there any final thoughts, any final advice, tips, tricks, hilarious stories that you want to drop in for our audience?
Honestly, just to put a pretty bow on it, as a bridesmaid, do your best to be there for the bride. Yes. Forget the drama. Have fun yourself. Don't let people that you don't like get to you.
Yeah.
And be chill. Keep the main thing the main thing.
Right.
That's my final little piece of tape on the package.
I think most of the things we talked about, like most of these things that make a problematic bridesmaids, can be fixed by just learning basic adult things.
Yeah, behavior.
Like keeping a calendar so that you're not late to things or you forget dates, okay? Keeping a calendar. Learning how to communicate well.
Not being selfish.
Yeah, just basic adult things. If you can learn to get those handled, then you'll be a good bridesmaid.
And also something, I'm so surprised that we didn't talk about this earlier. It just hit me. You're not in competition with the other bridesmaids.
Yeah.
It's not, or the bride, exactly. The bride. It's not a competition. So if somebody is not doing something the way you like, you don't have to exert your power and then run to the bride and be like, I told them off and blah, blah, blah. You think you're helping and you think you're getting brownie points, but you are looking like a psycho girly pop. Okay?
Yeah. And there's no The only hierarchy exists is pretty much the maid of honor, and the only reason that is because she's just the point person for the bride.
Right.
So the bride doesn't have to call a committee meeting every time she wants to change something or add something or take something away. She can communicate that to the maid of honor, whose duty that is.
And you really need to have a respect. That is one thing I have noticed is some bridesmaids don't like that the maid of honor is the maid of honor. They
can just leapfrog up to the bride.
And that's not how it works. Like, you need to respect that there is a process.
Yeah.
This is, there's an order to things to help it to run smoothly. So if the maid of honor is saying, like, hey, the bride is asking, do not come to her with any little petty drama, that's what it means. Do not go to the bride with any petty drama.
It doesn't mean except for when you feel like it.
Right. Like, you don't go around and go to her and try to fix it. No, we're done. Cut off.
Yeah.
Or, hey, even if it's not something the bride said, hey, we're not going to bother the bride with this. I know such and such fell through. We're going to move forward with this. We're not going to the bride. We're not freaking her out. There is probably a reason why they're saying that. So you don't always need to go behind and double check or rally people to be on your side. Like, again,
it's not me versus the team.
Yeah.
It's the team, not versus anyone. It's the team trying to succeed,
just making it happen.
And I think the worst thing you can do is try to form a little clique within the party, especially big bridal parties. It's not garnering support for your opinion. I really can't believe that we waited till the end to talk about this because it's super important. But if we can leave you with anything, is the reminder that it's not about you. Mm-hmm. It's also not to the point where you have to kill yourself for someone else. Be mindful, like legitimately mindful of what your strengths are and how far you can go and like extend yourself to be a support, because if you are literally killing yourself for this, you aren't going to be there for the person.
Well, and be mindful of your role. So if you say yes to being a bridesmaid, you have to realize there are expenses, there is time, and you have to put in effort. So if you're saying yes, you've got to know not only are you going to help in some way, whether it's putting money or you're doing the addresses or you're passing out invites or, you're helping purchase stamps, whatever it may be, you're helping with the bridal shower. You're going to help set up for the wedding. If these are things you cannot do, you're way too busy, you cannot make it. And I get it if it's in another state, but I'm saying if it's something in your hometown, then you need to speak up from the beginning. And I get it if there's like a random night on a Wednesday night and you have class and they're like, hey, everybody's coming up. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about the long run of like, okay, it's wedding, like crunch time, and you're just not available at all. Okay, you signed up, you agreed to that, so therefore you need to put forth that effort, and you need to do it with a good attitude. Mm-hmm. You were not forced. You agreed to be there. You agreed to.
So that, okay, I promise you this is my last question, then we can wrap up. What are your thoughts then, because all that other stuff is kind of expected, and this next thing is expected too, but it can quickly get out of hand. What are your thoughts on expenses for bachelorette parties, especially when the ones that they really want to travel, because not everyone can do that.
Right. So then that does go back to expectations. I think that for the most part, the bride is not really planning the bachelorette. That's the thing. The bride does not plan it. But her group of girls, you get together or it could be like the maid of honor, but you do have to be mindful. Again, it comes back to expenses. So sometimes what you have to do, if, like, let's say, I'm going to use you for instance, I have no idea what your situation may be, but let's say your sisters want to take you to, I don't know, Mexico, because that's not too far. They want to take you to Mexico. You're going to stay in a 5-star resort, really nice resort. And, they want it to be for 5 days, and everybody just is together having a good time. That's all fine and dandy. If your bridesmaids outside of your sisters do not have the finances to do that, then the maid of honor or whoever's helping to plan that need to sit down and say, okay, is this going to be a big deal to Kayla if all of her party cannot come because, this trip is going to cost everybody $1,500. We're flying in or San Diego tickets right now are $600. And then, we got to get across the border. So everybody's got to pay, for rental car, whatever the case may be. Yeah. You have to sit down and think, is this something that the bride, would she be comfortable with half of her party not being here because they cannot afford it? Or can we still give her a really fun experience? Maybe we can do, let's see how much it would be to go up to Tahoe and be in a log cabin for a night. And then we get up and, you know, we take her to a really nice breakfast spot. And then, you know, we go out and we go shopping and we hang out, you know, at the water in Tahoe or skiing, whatever the season, whatever. But you have to, it doesn't have to be super expensive.
Yeah.
Now, if that's what is affordable and everybody in her party can do it.
And are on board.
Right. Again, I went on an amazing bachelorette. And the family wanted something very, very nice for, you know, their family member that was getting married. And so they took care of, I mean, and we did some amazing things. And they covered that bill. And I was very grateful. It was a very fun experience. But that took the stress off of her girls. We all went, not one person argued with another. There were no bad feelings. Everybody had an amazing...
underlying tension.
There were no underlying tensions. Everybody had an amazing time. The bride enjoyed herself immensely, and everybody else did. It was a very expensive trip. I don't think any of us, the bride included, out of our own pockets, we probably would have worked very hard, but something else would have made more sense for us to do than this really extravagant trip. It was a lot of fun. I was able to enjoy it because I did not have the financial stress, and I think that's why the bride was able to have such a good time, because all of her party was able to be there present. We weren't worried about spending $1,500 so our phone was going to get cut off, or we weren't going to be able to pay our car note. Because realistically, some of us are single. We live in a very expensive state, and we may not have $1,500 to just drop. I don't know how much it was. I'm just saying what makes sense in my mind right now for tickets and everything. So if your family wanted to do the Mexico trip, like your sisters, circling back to that, that may be something they would have to do with you one-on-one. So it's just a sister's trip. And then everything else needs to be where the rest of your bridal party, if that's important to you, can make it. In my opinion, unless your family was going to step in and help cover the expenses of the other girls.
No, I agree.
Which does happen on occasion.
I think of my sister. She was in a wedding, and the bridal party, they were trying, but they just, you know, it's expensive these days. It's expensive. And so it didn't work for them to go on a whole bachelorette thing, but Kara flew her and the bride on a weekend girls trip, just the two of them, maid of honor and bridesmaid. Kara paid for everything because she knew that it just wouldn't be feasible for that. And the bride was totally fine with that.
That's amazing.
Would she have wanted the whole party there? Yeah, probably, but it wouldn't. It just didn't work out that way. She still had an amazing time. She still got to have a bachelorette weekend with her best friend. And
that's amazing.
How it worked out.
And that is communicated, right? So she probably had, wherever she lives, she probably had something there with her bridesmaids there. Well, if Kara can't, she lives across the country or in another country, you know, whatever the case was, that makes sense. But if it's like a local thing and it's like, hey, we all want to go to Paris for the weekend. Well,
have fun.
Have fun. Unless y'all are covering that.
Bon voyage.
The probability of me just being able to drop that, and I'm not going to charge that up for you because I'm already going to spend money on, you know. So unless it's something, I do think that it needs to be realistic for your entire bridal party to do.
Totally makes sense. Well, again, we thank you so much for being on Friendeavor the podcast. I want you to know you are welcome back anytime. Wedding episode or whatever, because we could literally do parts 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 to this.
Girl,
with all your life
Honestly,
experience,
we could be here for hours and hours.
We could be. I mean, we did not even plan to do this in 2 parts, but as we got going, I was like, oh no, we can't just stop. So thank you so much.
Monique's long-winded. We're gonna have to cut this up.
Thank you so much for being with us this week and last week and next week and all the weeks coming up. We hope that you are enjoying all the fall feels, and we will be continuing to bring you content week after week this season. And if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns, or questions, you can email us at friendeavorpodcast@gmail.com, and we would be happy to chat with you. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.